Yeah. So just a minute.
We are live, sir.
Okay. नमस्कार. आज 13 फरवरी 2022 डॉक्टर के SCFI हार्ट केयर फाउंडेशन ऑफ इंडिया की एक्सपर्ट ग्रुप ऑफ एनवायरनमेंट जो हमारी ये जूम पे ऑनलाइन मीटिंग होती है, इसमें सभी एक्सपर्ट मेंबर्स का और जो लोग लाइव जो है यूट्यूब एंड फेसबुक पे DR के अग्रवाल पे, डॉक्टर के अग्रवाल के पेज पे देख रहे हैं, उन सबका स्वागत है। और जैसा कि आप सब लोग जानते हैं कि ये हमारी राउंड टेबल एनवायरनमेंट लास्ट करीब 1.5 ईयर से चल रही है। डॉक्टर के अग्रवाल जी ने स्टार्ट की थी, पब्लिक हेल्थ होती थी, उसी के साथ से उन्होंने एनवायरनमेंट शुरू की और वो उन्होंने बहुत उनका कंट्रीब्यूशन तो हम सभी लोग जानते ही हैं कितना रहा है पब्लिक हेल्थ एनवायरनमेंट में, और उसी को हम कंटिन्यू कर रहे हैं। तो आज का टॉपिक हमारे सब मेंबर्स के साथ डिस्कस होकर बहुत ही इंपॉर्टेंट टॉपिक है। दिस इज वेरी डायरेक्टली रिलेवेंट विद दी जो अर्बन पोल्यूशन से, चाहे एयर पोल्यूशन हो, वाटर पोल्यूशन हो, नॉइज पोल्यूशन हो, ग्रीन हाउस गैस इमिशंस हो, तो ये सबसे बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है। तो इसको हमने टॉपिक को लिया है और टॉपिक है बायोमाइनिंग ऑफ डम्पसाइट्स, और जो इसको हम कहते हैं बायोरेमेडिएशन ऑफ लेगेसी वेस्ट एंड यूटिलाइजेशन ऑफ पोल्यूशन कंट्रोल एस्पेक्ट्स। तो ये टॉपिक आज जो हमने हमारे एक्सपर्ट मेंबर्स के जो सजेस्ट किया, उनका थैंक यू करते हुए मैं इसको स्टार्ट करूंगा बैकग्राउंड के साथ। आप सभी जानते हैं कि हम लोग मोस्टली जो है सभी लोग अर्बन एरिया इंडिया में हैं। हम जो एक्सपर्ट मेंबर हैं और जो हमारे बहुत से लोग वॉच कर रहे हैं, अर्बन एरिया में भी होंगे, रूरल एरिया में भी होंगे। अर्बन जो इंडिया है अकाउंट्स फॉर ए third of the India's population and generate around 55 millions of the municipal solid waste annually. आप समझ सकते हैं कितना ह्यूज क्वांटिटी, करीब 55 मिलियंस जो है मीट्रिक टन्स जो है एनुअली जनरेट होता है। एंड मेजर पार्ट ऑफ जो है जो सच म्युनिसिपल सॉलिड वेस्ट इज डम्प्ड इनटू ओपन फ्रॉम डिकेड्स, बिकॉज हमारे पास अभी भी बहुत से इंजीनियरिंग लैंडफिल साइट नहीं है। मोस्टली ट्रेडिशनली ये एक जगह डंप साइट क्रिएट कर दी गई सिटीज में, वहाँ पे पड़ता रहा। दिल्ली में भी जो लोग रहते देखा होगा कि हमारे 3 जो लैंडफिल्स के पहाड़ हैं, गाजीपुर में या ओखला में है या भलसवा में है, तो आप देखे होंगे कितनी हाइट और कितना वहाँ पे सो ओपन में डंप साइट होता रहा डिकेड से। एंड दी डंप साइट्स जो एंड लैंडफिल साइट्स जो कंट्री में है, इट पोज थ्रेट टू दी पब्लिक हेल्थ एंड एनवायरनमेंट, क्योंकि जो आफ्टर डिकेड्स यूज जो वेस्ट है इसमें, इसको जो डिकम्पोज होता है, देन दीज जो ओपन डंप साइट्स हैं इतना हाई और लार्जर और हाई उसमें हाइट में होकर ग्रो हो गई हैं कि बिकम ए ह्यूज पॉइंट फॉर सोर्स ऑफ पोल्यूशन और एंड इंक्लूडिंग जो ग्रीन हाउस गैस इमिशंस है, मीथेन एंड अदर लैंडफिल गैसेस। Also, it is estimated that more than 10,000 hectare of this जो हमारे precious land, जो urban land is logged into these dump sites in India. आप समझ सकते हैं कि ये जस्ट टू बिकॉज वो डिग्रेड हो गया, डिकम्पोज हो गया, बट जो इनर्ट वेस्ट एंड अदर वेस्ट ये जस्ट उसी में लैंडफिल को ब्लॉक किए हुए है। अगर आप कंट्री में अगर 10,000 हेक्टेयर लैंड जो है खाली इसकी वजह से ब्लॉक है, अर्बन वो भी अर्बन सिटीज में। एज सच लीगेसी वेस्ट लाइंग डम्प्ड इन सिटी रन इनटू several lakhs of tons which is need to be basically remediated to make city cleaner. आपने देखा होगा उसके सराउंडिंग एरिया में किस तरह से जो है उसका पोल्यूशन होता है और किस तरह से अदर जो है जो उनकी लाइफ स्टाइल लोगों की रहती है, किस तरह की उनकी हेल्थ एस्पेक्ट्स होते हैं बहुत। और जो पर्टिकुलरली जो एयर पोल्यूशन का नॉर्थ इंडिया में सोर्स है, दिस इज ऑल्सो वन ऑफ दी जो मेजर सोर्स। उनकी जो फायर होती है वहाँ पे लैंडफिल में, या वैसे भी जो इनर्ट वेस्ट है, डस्ट है, आसपास उड़ती रहती है, तो दिस इज मेजर सोर्स ऑफ दी एयर पोल्यूशन। एंड ग्राउंड वाटर का कंटामिनेशन होता है, लीचेट वगैरह जो निकलता है, बिकॉज दीज आर नॉट इंजीनियरिंग लैंडफिल साइट। तो ये अकॉर्डिंगली, और ऑनरेबल एनजीटी ने भी अभी ऑर्डर में कहा कि दैट जो सच वेस्ट है, जो भी है लेगेसी वेस्ट, तो नीड टू बी इसको बायो रेमेडिएशन और बायो माइनिंग से जो डंप साइट को इसको करना चाहिए। दिस इज द प्रेफर्ड ऑप्शंस फॉर द रेमेडिएशन ऑफ द बायो रेमेडिएशन और बायो माइनिंग ऑफ दीज डंप साइट्स। सो गवर्नमेंट एंड जुडिशरी एंड सभी जो पब्लिक है, एवरीबडी वांट्स कि ये लैंडफिल्स जो ओपन डंप साइट्स हैं क्लीन रहें। इसके लिए वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट है कि जो बायो माइनिंग है आज का टॉपिक ऑफ डंप साइट्स, ये और जो बायो रेमिडिएशन ऑफ लीगेसी वेस्ट, इसका यूटिलाइजेशन है, पोल्यूशन कंट्रोल एस्पेक्ट्स हम डिस्कस करेंगे। तो इसके लिए हमारे साथ हमारे फ्रेंड श्री संजीव कुमार जी, जो कि वाइस प्रेसिडेंट हैं यहाँ पे रैमकी ग्रुप में, बहुत बड़ा ग्रुप है जो कि लैंडफिल्स और इंजीनियरिंग लैंडफिल्स पे, हजारस बेस्ड साइट पे और बहुत सी बायोमेडिकल साइट्स पे ऑल ओवर इंडिया काम कर रहा है। और उनके जो कलीग हैं साथ में हैं श्री प्रेमचंद जी है ना?
यस सर, यस सर।
हाँ, तो एक प्रेजेंटेशन इन्होंने इस सब्जेक्ट पे बनाया हुआ है, तो मैं पहले रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा संजीव कुमार जी से कि बैकग्राउंड देते हुए then we can start the presentation. Over to Sanjeev Kumar ji.
Thank you, sir. Namaskar to all the esteemed colleagues present here on this virtual event. I think first of all, I thank that this is considering this topic as one of the topic which is not only very critical in terms of the present times, because unlocking the land which is lying with the dump under the dump is very important activity. But at the same time, what are the steps to be done and how it can really be helpful is very important. So considering this topic is very important. Number two is that when we talk of this, there is a government focus and is government willingness that this should be taken as a very important activity under the Swachh Bharat Mission 2. Lot of guidelines by the Central Pollution Control Board, CPHEO, and under Swachh Bharat Mission has been published. But these guidelines needs to integrate the practical problems which is going on. So with that objective, we just want to run through a small few slides on how it has been and what are the experiences we have been facing in the last few years and what can be the things which needs to be improved. So just it's a point to be open up for that debate, and we can think that how it can do some better steps for having a proper step forward so that we can accomplish the task which we are aiming to. Just to stress upon, Government of India has under the Swachh Bharat Mission 2 has declared about roughly around 15,000 lakhs crores of rupees for Swachh Bharat Mission 2. Quite a considerable amount is going to be spent on the unlocking of the legacy waste or the dump ground. So the importance lies not only in finding a solution, but proper utilization of the fund allocated. My colleague Prem Chandra has been very critical and has been doing a lot of collation of studies, lot of collation of the information which is going on across the country on this aspect. I would request him to just do the slideshow and contribute wherever is requiring. I will be presenting the presentation. Prem, please, can you start showing this, giving the slideshows, please?
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Put it on slideshow, yeah. Is it visible to all, sir?
Yeah, Sanjay ji, bilkul, definitely, very clear.
So we have tried to put a few things. This is the photograph of the dump site. It was more than 35 years old dump site. It's spread across 332 acres of land at Hyderabad, and the order or the contract given to us was in the year 2010. The landfill was handed over with the objectives that the dump ground was handed over, which was spread across 332 acres to reclaim certain portion of the land. And they had given us roughly around 55 acres of land to be reclaimed to construct a landfill and other processing plants on the dump ground, on the reclaimed land. We could understanding the problem and the fresh waste intake during that time was roughly around 3,500 tons, which today is now 8,000 metric ton per day. We could reclaim around 125 acres of land, and on reclaiming 125 acres of land, partly was capped, permanently capped, partly was utilized, and we are also constructed a huge compost plant, 19.8 megawatt of power plant, a compressed biogas plant, which are right now operating. So this is the photo of that plant. It has been a successful case study of reclaiming the land, utilizing it for landfill, scientific landfill, pre-processing of the waste, and also recovery of certain material, with 80% of the waste going under the capping. Go to next slide. The contents of the presentation is basically what is the legacy dump site scenario, what are the legal frameworks and the development with respect to honorable NGT code directions, the impacts, which is somewhere not very integrated with the orders and the guideline, the challenges, and the way forward. So this is how the structure of the presentation is. Go to the next slide. I think Dr. Anil Kumar has already explained about the gigantic spread and the nature of the problem, which we have roughly around 55 million tons of MSW in urban areas, which are openly dumped historically. Just to highlight here, right now, when we are talking in 2022, we have 10 cities which is having billion population. It's a billion population cities now, which was 35 in 2001, became 53 in 2011, and it was million population. But today we are having 10 cities which is having billion population. So the kind of waste which is getting generated and the kind of nature of problem is humongously cannot be beyond our imagination. And obviously the population growth, and roughly it is estimated that more than 10,000 hectares of urban areas are locked into dump site. And this is the note taken from CPHO CPHO note. Go to next slide. These are the data which is available on the several websites. It's a CPCB document also it's having, and roughly there is number of legacy dump site was to be counted as 3,075, with UP having maximum of 601, Maharashtra and Madhya Pradesh on a similar like 320. Dump sites reclaimed as per 2020 was that in Madhya Pradesh, 50 dump sites has been reclaimed, Karnataka 15 and Kerala 6. Dump sites converted into SLF and capped has been roughly around, which is as per the record, is roughly around 10 numbers, which having maximum, Karnataka having the maximum numbers. Judicially, the courts has always been very active on this, and there are some cases like OA 5119, directed bioremediation of dump sites by October 20, and NGT has given in its order that bioremediation is possible and is saying that dump sites and discourages capping or using of any other using of the land for any other purposes other than the waste management or related activities. CPCB has been directed to prepare inventory of dump sites. That inventory has been prepared, and compiling info on the legacy sites and identify gaps of NGT order 593 by 2017. So they have also done some gap studies that what are the things which is there and which can be possible or not possible. Can we go to the next slide, please? Just to highlight the problems, the Ministry of Urban Affairs, Housing and Urban Affairs have said that more than 1.114 billion tons of waste is lying with the number of cities of 472 and number of dump sites are 517. So these are only like presenting the greater than 20 lakh is there 20. So these are the data which is there, and this shows the problem. Next. Under the solid waste management rules, it talks of the bioremediation, says that who is the potential responsible authorities. Obviously, the local body is the authority, and it says that capping is permissible in the absence of potential. And it also says that reduction of the biomining and placement of residues in new SLF. It very clearly says that any dump site can have a new SLF, but it should be scientific landfill or secured landfill. Capping with geomembrane, it should have a cutoff walls or any other method. So it requires to provide a total number of dump sites and number of information, number of bios. So the inventory is the responsibility of the local authority, and bioremediation and capping to be completed by March 2021. Next. So the timelines has also been defined, and what actions to be done by the ULB has been clearly mentioned in the rules. Legacy in the compliance to the Honorable High Court, guidelines were to be prepared. CPCB has prepared the guideline, and it has been uploaded with where it says stabilization, pre-processing, and utilization of the screen faction. Next. NGT has also been quite vocal and directive in terms of what should be done and where it should be sent. NGT believes that bioremediation is the possible solution. Either it should be ex situ or in situ. It says that the option of capping of legacy waste, which has huge environmental and health consequences, is no option at all, except for the inert waste, which again is to be disposed in the scientific secured landfill. The problem here is says that inert waste, the definition of inert waste has not been defined. So, and that what is the utilization of the recoverable material has also not been defined. And there is no enforcement to who should be used to, because somewhere the whosoever is doing, whether it is ULB or some other person identified, they should very much clear at what should be done. It also says that bioremediation and biomedical should be a preferred option. Cities with more than 10 lakh population needs a localized solution. Now, this localized solution has got many things which has not been very much clarity there is. It directs ULB and legacy waste as well as existence operational dump site on pre-existing ground level through a process called bioremediation. The definition of bioremediation and biomining has been clearly defined. Next. So urban local bodies, again, I think I have explained it, and in the absence of potential biomining and bioremediation, it shall be scientifically capped as per landfill capping norms to prevent the further damage to the environment. Go to next. Impacts are very high, sir, and impacts like if we take of Delhi dump sites, all along there is either Hindon River or there is a Hindon Canal or there is a Najafgarh drain. The impacts either in terms of groundwater, in terms of water pollution, and in terms of the air pollution measurement, which is also, this is contributing to a huge contribution in terms of either in terms whether they are catching the fire or in terms of PM 2.5 or PM SPM level. So those impacts are very high, and there is a requirement as to how transportation activities and how the dump sites gives to a cumulative region of air pollution going up. And obviously, these dump sites do not have liner system. There is a controlled leachate generation. There is no provision of gas collection. And generally, it is not defined, or there is a problem with that. The ULBs do not have any other option moving out from this particular site to the other site, where the fresh waste should continue to be going out. We go to next slide. Utilization of appropriate machinery is not defined. Use of bioculture for stabilization of waste is also kept open. These biocultures are also very important because probably the use of chemicals may further add on where whatever the recovered material is to be disposed, what kind of utilization has to come. We understand there are certain biocultures having halogens into it. If those halogens are being used in the bioculture as a bioculture, those material recovered will also have halogens in it and may affect the other wherever the further inert is being used, either in the cement plant or in just dumping for road making or any other purposes. Screening of different fractions required varied machineries. There are some things given in the CPHO guideline. but whether those machines are correct or not, maybe I don't think so. It is everything can be done under the guideline, but since there is a huge rush and huge requirement, probably it needs a debate and probably it needs much more structuring. Analysis of bioearth for toxicity. This is the most important part. Very simply, it is being told that it should be given for road making or into the filling of the low-lying areas. Whether we are just transferring the waste from one place to other, that needs to be seen, and what kind of material required for to be dumped is important. Leachate management. When we are opening up the dump grounds, these dump grounds have the leachate intact into it. Probably some moves out, but it's generally seen that when you open up, it is like a lot of oozing out of the leachate coming out. So the leachate management while doing the bioremediation is not very clearly defined, and this is how the experiences tell us. Proper record of utilization and disposal of proceeds from biomining. This is one very important things. Either Ramkey or anybody or any ULBs, lot of case studies have already been done. We should be in a position to now to document that where this has been utilized and whether it has been utilized or not, or is it just like shifting of the material. Fresh waste continues to be dumped. This adds to the further problem of execution of the biomining projects. Next. So these are the gaps in planning and data. Obviously, there is no data. This is very critical because it can be done. It is not at all that it cannot be done, because urban local bodies has a very defined process for the last 15, 20 years now. How many trucks of waste going in, what kind of waste, and where does it ward. So they know also that the certain portion of the landfill, which portion was having the 10 years back dump is there, or 15 years back, or 5 years or so. So planning is very much requirement, because that is a scientific way of doing it, and this is how it is being done internationally. Post-closure plans, lack of data on quantification, characteristics, borehole testings, leachate and all. City level plan for alternate sites of inerts and rejects are also not reject. When we do city level planning, when we do town planning, we know that these are the areas which are having low-lying areas and can have a potential of accommodating such filling material. That should be there. Gaps in guidance, technical guidance, some more refinement of the SOPs are very much important for this. Gaps in execution and use of outputs, and need for training of the ULBs, SPCB, urban development through checks and audits of disposal. I think this is a very critical requirement. The urban local bodies, especially with integration of the pollution control board and the planning authorities, has to be together, so that there is a requirement for that outputs are better. Outputs are better. Next. Monitoring directions issued by CPCB and SPOCB for complete listing of the dump site has been declared. Bioremediation analysis, like maintenance of records for utilization and disposal of inert fraction, has not been defined. A lot of cement factories are there. A lot of boiler operations are across every city, which is contributing to, which needs some fuel in one source or the other. The RDF generated, if it has to be used, there should be enforcement that they should be used. Probably there will be some amendment required to their boiler or fuel incineration design of the equipment, but that can be done. Why should not they be benefited with this kind of an outlay, so that they should not be using the regular source or the natural source, whatever they has been using, whether it is coal, fuel, wood, or bagasse, or any other material. But this RDF, if it is being used, it should be used, and there should be a coordination, like what we do have manifest kind of a thing. From material moving out from X place should be captured at the Y location. Compilation of the annual report and compilation of various directives for honorable NGT. Next. Actually, right now, whatever so far has been, I think one thing is important here to understand is, as on date, there are almost 170 tenders out for biomining remediation in the so-called, and the value of the tender ranges from 10 to 12 crores each to 650 crores. So if I take a lump sum of 100 crores or so, probably it would, it's skewed away. So more than 11,000 crores of rupees is under the tender stage where such a problem is going to be done. Whether that money will be properly utilized or properly will we be able to use it or not is a question that needs to be assessed, because to us it is now looking as relocation of one dump to the other dump, saying that this road, in case of Delhi also, we are being told that you have to, the tender stocks, and we have been debating with the authorities of EDMC and South Delhi Corporation, saying that, sir, please give us the place where it should be dumped. We can't reclaim the entire Ghazipur dump ground or Okhla or Bhalasava. And a lot of money is being used just to put in the name of shifting one location. So we are blatantly telling it is not a relocation of the dump site. It's a complex activity. It is like a abscess which a human body has, and that abscess cannot be just given to some quack or treated like that. So it is a complex technical solution. Let us have a solution, and complex economic consideration, environment condition, residential state. I think this particular activity also needs to be looked into, that what are the real estates coming up and how this benefits goes to the real estate development across, and does not unlock near-term real estate development potential. This we have to see how it is, what could be planned in that area or not. Next, please. Dump sites, it has got impact of residents, movement of heavy machineries. This is a very critical activity because any dump site requires huge different types of machinery with proper base, proper working. That is very much to be looked into as a part of technical. And obviously, while doing so and during the process, safety, health, and environment has to be looked up. It generates a lot of odor, and which has impact on the worker itself there, and obviously to the surroundings. Next, please. Technology selection is very important. It is based on the waste composition. Each dump site cannot be the same. It has a dump site of a small town of having 5 lakh population to a town like medium population with 30 lakh population, and like a billion city like Delhi and Kolkata and Chennai and others has got a different type of waste characteristics. It has to have a different. So everywhere it cannot be the same. Capex is also very huge looking into, and it's like a running capex, because machines have got a different kind of a requirement which needs to happen. It impact on the efficacy of the project, and what is happening, itna truck hai, itna theoretical data is being given, whereas when you look into the ground, either it is in the form of volumetric analysis or in terms of tonnage, but it does not match. Moreover, depending upon the type and that within the type, the different phases where it has been done, the densities of the waste has to be very varies, and the characteristics also varies. Next, please. So a lot of technical requirements are done. We have done a lot of work on how the works can be taken up, characterization into small, medium, economics of scale, transportation. Transportation is very important here, because when we shift from one place to the other place, in place of lifting of the inerts, it generates the ecological footprint in terms of gaseous emissions, and in terms of transportation, in terms of the cost involved, in terms of the contribution to the localized transportation, is having a lot of impact. So that needs also to be properly assessed while defining a project project contour. Next, please. The parts of the biomine product, generally what happens is that it is in the form of compost, very little amount, because already the organic fraction or the conducive fraction for the good manure is reduced then during the course of the time. There is a potential of RDF which generally ranges from 12 to 15%, or maximum. In some cases where the fresh waste is there, it goes up to 25%. And inerts are very high. Recyclables are almost negligible, because by the time old dump sites have already been picked up with all the recyclables, with either informal or formally. And so the maximum amount comes as a part of the inert. Now the quality of the inert and the quantity where to be disposed and where it should be, what quality has to be acceptable to that, is a scientific study which reads a lot of this, and it's more than 70%. There are certain certain RDF material or the fresh mist can use for energy recovery, and either that energy recovery, if it is done in situ with putting up a kind of a CBG or biomethanation or waste to energy plant, requires a big capex. But those things have to be inbuilt, and proceeds from the legacy funds can only be determined with scientific characterization of the waste. Yeah, next slide, please. So these are the challenges: operational infrastructure, contractual. The contracts does not talk, they only talk of that you just dispose it. They are not taking into the risks associated, whether it is to the contractor who is working or to the, it cannot be just, it should be properly defined, because this is a study or this is a project which is going on at a very large scale, depending upon nature. And if something does fail up, then who will take the risks associated has to be very clearly defined. And obviously there is a finance involved, a lot of capex is involved, and a lot of commitments are involved. So that should be properly designed, that this particular sector, if we want to unlock, or if we want to get the land, then the land unlocking should have a proper support from the ULB or the government with supporting to the person who is doing it. Next. I think I've been declaring, discussing all this. 100% of land reclamation is almost difficult. Anybody who is doing it and telling us that this is happening, is somewhere there is a problem. We have to reorganize the whole land. Utilization has to be defined, and it should take up. Clearing land requires setting up a biomedical equipment within the dump site. Within the dump sites, like what we visualize at Hyderabad, and within the Ghaziabad or Okhla or Bhalsawa, within the dump site, you require a lot of space for all these equipments to be installed, and maneuverability of the vehicle. There is a litigation on the project of the land in some cases, opposition from the local public, lack of clarity on volume versus weight, provision of power and water connections. All this requires huge amount of power especially, and there is no such provisions being provided in the when we take up. Lack of familiarity with the CPCB guideline, delay in the processing due to climatic condition. Climatic conditions has been very adverse in the last 1 or 2 years, and roughly around now 6 months time is not very conducive for such waste management projects generally. Difficulty in quantifying the legacy waste, and hence a separate methodology. This is very critical. Until unless we have a scientific database or scientific analysis that this is how it should be done. The toolkits are under preparation by Center of Science and Environment. Some toolkits have been, some guidelines or SOP which has been given by the CPHEO or the CPCB needs further detailing with experts like who are sitting here, or from the open market who has got the practical knowledge of it. Those things are very much required. Next. For smaller ULBs, less than 1 point, farming areas are closed so that mined riches can be taken up the farmer. But the logic is here, यहाँ पे तो dust पड़ा हुआ था, यहाँ तो कचरा पड़ा हुआ था, whether I should take or not. So some kind of a confidence building with the government, giving that yes, if this is the waste or if this is the quality of the innards, then it can be used. So farmers do not want it to be. In fact, in few places, the authorities are asking us to put it into the open cast mining area or the mined area. That also is not, cannot be done without any legal backup or kind of a technical backup, that it should be done. Innards should be used for ULBs for citizen in building activities. Generally, if I take Delhi or if I take Hyderabad or any, lot of drains are getting constructed with footpaths being made. These innards can always be used for those footpaths and utilization of this area, but there has to be a backup. Why will PHED or PWD or Delhi Jal Board, why will their contractors whose, when they inbuilt a contract, why should take they take it? Generally they are doing, but these are not documented. So these are the problems. Transportation of RDF from ULB, this is one of the biggest problem. This volume of the waste or the RDF is very high, is very low, sorry, is very low. So a truck of 15-ton capacity can only transfer something like 7 tons of RDF. Now this is a volume give. So the cost of operation, for example, is say 5 rupees per ton per kilometer. The cost here becomes double. And if number of trucks movement becomes very high. No cement plant within the vicinity of such like 300 kilometers. The nearest cement plants like Delhi or in Hyderabad is roughly around 300 kilometers. So the cost of transportation goes up. So these are the things which are the issues of the quality of the bioearth has not been defined. What should be taken to the farmland? What should be taken as to the inert making has not been defined. Next, please. I think this all have been the linkages of the offtake like soil enricher are still being a challenges. ULB needs to come out, or the statutory bodies needs to make it up for that. Next. I have explained all this. Infrastructure, machineries are not available, contractual, lack of experienced people working in this. The cost of legacy waste, volume based. Cement companies are reluctant to take refuse derived fuel for the contractor. I think Dr. Saha has just raised a point. Here it's very clear. Any cement plant generally spends around roughly around 3,500 per ton of coal, rupees per ton for coal intake. This is free of cost. But the cost of transportation from one place to 250 kilometers is more than 4,000 rupees per ton. Now, whether we want coal to be used or whether we want RDF from this legacy waste to be used is the directions which needs a technical study. How will be the cost benefit of in place of coal in this, and what are the benefits we are getting? So those kinds of directives should come as a part of technical expertise. In terms of, we are only talking of economics per se, but the benefits which are coming because of savior of the coal, this RDF, and the cost attached with spending on RDF is higher, and that too only on the transportation I am talking, sir. So these are the things. There are so many aspects which needs a lot of cost benefit analysis. We are open to discuss and share with that, but these are the ones I'm just telling. Unreasonable timelines proposed by ULB. For example, Delhi has been asked, the tender is like that, it has not been awarded to anyone, but Delhi has asked to do the entire project of Ghazipur, 50% of the dumping ground, to be done in 34 months. And with this kind of a climatic condition, will that be done? What is the way planned? So many things are not answered in those contract. Lack of clarity on SPCB's clearances. Even there is no role defined that during such project, what will be the role of SPCB? And we strongly feel the role of SPCB in this kinds of project, when this is just like a beginning in India, it has to be completely, it's kind of an accountability attached role. We can, when it's a regulator, but when you do a regulation job and when you make up new kinds of such things, it has to be like of a hand holding, because tomorrow ULB and the person contractor who is doing should not be held accountable that boss, you have not taken care of the drain where your leachate was flowing out, and because of this leachate, the quality of the leach has further gone downtrodden. We never created, neither the ULB, there was no such problem which is there. And when I talk of we, it is not Ramki, we public. When we take up as a public, we never created. Now with this kind of so clarity and accountability of the SPCVs along with ULB also has to be defined. Next, please. Generally, sir, with these kinds of problems, we think this is a bigger expense required, bigger focus required. So we say that it is under budgeted, no grants on financial assistance from the government. And I'll tell you, sir, the kind of approach the corporations are taking up, they are calling that you please do the project. There are hundreds of contractors who are ready to do it. They all will be done. Probably, according to me, or according to me as an individual here I'm talking, is that probably everything will go in vain. We need to have a very much clear and understanding of whether the utilization of the money is there. The grants, like 18 crore, for example, I'll just name a corporation, Ablapur, something like that. Now in Ablapur, 18 crore money is to be used, and it's now 54 acres of land to be cleared. That money will also be used. Some documentation, beautiful presentation, beautiful things, but probably where the inerts will go, what will be the recovery needs to be assessed. The ULB could not bear the entire mining cost. Payment terms and methodologies, lack of applicability of GST. For this also there is a GST. The cost of burden on transporting soil is roughly around 4 rupees to 5 rupees per kg. And that too also defines only 50 kilometer. And when you talk of inert to 50 kilometer, it has to be looked into that 50 kilometer is whether there, and the problems are acute in case of mega city like Delhi, Chennai, Calcutta, and even Mumbai. We have been awarded very recently a project on Deonar, clearing it up. We are facing those problems that when we just opened up a portion of it, now the leachate is beyond managed. So this is how the situation, and why it has beyond managed, because of the groundwater condition. ऊपर से दिखता है कि वो नीचे जा रहा है, but probably it does not go. And entire area all around, estuaries all around needs to be looked into in that comprehensive. Next. I think I'm through. It's increasing. Go by. I think these are some examples. Go fast. Make it fast. Prem.
Yes, sir. Here we are actually talking about that biomining to be aligned with an integrated solid waste management approach. Yeah, and this needs to be looked into, that whether wherever is the dumping ground, what we want, whether we should be looked into like certain portion to be capped, certain portion to be compost, certain portion to be waste to energy, some recoveries, because that will lead to at least do the correctness. It will not completely remove that, but it will lead to a situation where we can have all the facilities together. And including, there is another potential of C&D waste here within. Each of these dump grounds is having a lot of dumps, which is having construction demolition waste, which has got a very different treatment methodology and market. Next, please. So these are some of the projects which are already going on, and probably we have such, we have created at Hyderabad. And Hyderabad has been a different approach where integrated approach has been applied to the existing dump ground. Next. Next. So that's it, sir. We are done.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sanjeev ji. Is so excellent presentation. So every our expert member so excited to, with this said. Very detailed. You have touched, all the kind of issues, possible solutions, challenges, difficulties. It's very, very excellent presentation, Sanjeev ji. And thank you for making such a presentation. Before going to, because already we're going to be 12:55 and Sunday hai, so we can take one or two member today. But I request you send presentation to in our group so that all the members can study that, and next sometime maybe one or two session, maybe next may not be only possible. So I think we have to need to be discussed with the next coming two sessions. So but I just one comment to make that is very important in the financial aspects. If the government is not going to be pitching money for with the municipality, directly if we with the scope of municipality, it will not be possible, because ministry, all the municipality are just starving with the funds. Actually that Verji, and just like in Delhi, the kind of you have to need to create SPV, and with the mandatory directions from the court or the government to put in money by all the stakeholders, including municipality, including the government, including whatever the other stakeholders involved. So it's will not be possible, and with the dedicated SPV has to be created for the any kind of this recommendaation of the dump site, biomining and dump site. So with this comment, I'll request first only I think request today 2 members can just take a brief if it is possible, because Dwarkanath ji, that he was talking about the one Kumbakonam, particularly the biomining site, they have something. So only quick 2-3 minutes today. If he can say something, then we can later on we can discuss that also. And also Arun Kumar ji, because especially from his MCD. So today other members we may excuse for that today. So then we can discuss in details next with the presentation when we receive from the Sanjeev Kumar ji. So I'll request first Dwarkanath ji, then Arun Kumar ji today.
Okay, good afternoon. Thank you, Dr. Anil, and to other HCFI members. And it was indeed excellent presentation by Sanjeev, our old colleague from CVCB. And as his last slide was that no one size fits all. I think that should have been the first slide, according to me, because, you know, like it is not very relevant to have a uniform approach and uniform guideline for this particular issue, because, you know, solid waste rules are there in existence since 2000. And all these landfill need to be covered and capped. The first initial rule, if I remember correct, Sanjeev will correct me, it was supposed to be done by December 2003. Mr. T. Venugopal was looking after that time in CPCB. And this, you know, like a practical approach is needed, not only in the rules, but also in the approach for implementation. Okay, it has become a subject issue of NGT, and NGT has given orders and deadlines. Even now, we are not in a position to meet most of the deadlines. So a uniform approach is not going to work, and clarity, as he has highlighted on a number of issues, clarity is not there. Though small municipalities have achieved to some extent, bigger municipalities, it becomes very difficult because of the complex issue the moment you dig it out. So without going into much of this, I tried to bring in some officials from Kumbakonam or the contractor from Kumbakonam who has actually worked in Tamil Nadu, but that I could not get it because of the shortness of time. But of course, the Ramki is one of the biggest people in this, right from 2000, in the early parts of 2000. I happened to visit your Ramki's site at Hyderabad also, in Rangareddy district. But that was in 2008 I visited. That time, this much of reclamation and then biomining concept was not there. Only the issue of solid waste management using compost and also biomining, compost and incineration, and biomedical waste facility was there that time in Rangareddy district. But it is a very complex issue, and then if possible, I would request Dr. Anil and also Dr. Sanjeev to bring in the serving member of CPCB also into the debate, at least one day, so that, you know, we can understand what is there in their mind. It is very complex, and just simply passing on the judgment of NGT or Supreme Court or High Court is not going to work with the ULBs and also with the SPCBs. SPCBs have very limited role because ULB secretaries are always senior to SPCBs, so they hardly listen to what SPCB says. This is the practical difficulty which we faced during our time also, and it is the same now also. So with this, some opening remarks, it is a very complex issue, and then we need CPCB and MOEF on board to come with some meaningful suggestion and also to have a better understanding of what they are doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Dwarkanath ji. Will continue your discussion. I think next session also will continue, and you can invite that person also for discussion. And from the Kumbakonam advisory. So I request now only just maybe 2-3 minutes. Arun Kumar ji can say what was maybe his experience, and other members, and including Dwarkanath ji, Arun Kumar ji. Next session, everybody can have a chance to speak and discuss the. So Arun, over to Arun ji.
Only मैं thanks देना चाहता हूँ बस.
हाँ साहब, बिल्कुल सर, आपको तो मैं स्पेशली आज हमें टाइम नहीं दे कर पा रहे बिकॉज ऑफ द टाइम.
संजीव को बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद देना चाहता हूँ बस.
जी सर, बिल्कुल है. और उसको नेक्स्ट टाइम सर प्रेजेंटेशन आपको भेज दिया जाएगा सबको. वी नीड टू हैव दिस क्लियर वेरी सॉल्यूशन. यू आर एक्सपीरियंस पर्सन फ्रॉम CPCB, सो वी नीड टू एटलीस्ट हैव अ सॉल्यूशन.
सवाल नहीं करूंगा. धन्यवाद.
जी बिल्कुल सर,
सबको.
अरुण जी. या
थैंक यू. पहले तो सबसे पहले मैं संजीव जी को थैंक्स करना चाहता हूं कि उन्होंने एक पूरा प्रीव्यू इस प्रोजेक्ट्स का और इस प्रॉब्लम का इन्होंने रखा है। और सबसे जो हमने अपने हिसाब से जो हमने अपना एक्सपीरियंस दिल्ली का देखा है, किसी जमाने में जब कॉरपोरेशन तीनों एक थी, एक म्युनिसिपल कॉरपोरेशन थी, उस समय से हम लोग वेस्ट मैनेजमेंट में डंप साइट के सॉल्यूशन के बारे में, उस समय रेमेडिएशन वर्ड एग्जैक्टली नहीं था, शुरू ही नहीं हुआ था, तो उस समय से हम लोग इसमें सैंपल टेस्टिंग वगैरह कर करके और सोच रहे थे कैसे इसको हम इससे पाए, क्योंकि दिल्ली में लैंड अवेलेबिलिटी नहीं है। और जब तक के हम किसी भी साइट को एक्सक्लूसिवली प्रेजेंट वेस्ट के लिए रोकते नहीं हैं, उस पे काम करना ऑलमोस्ट समझ लीजिए कि इम्पॉसिबल है। जो इम्पॉसिबल दुनिया में कोई वर्ड नहीं होता, लेकिन अगर हम फ्रेश वेस्ट की इनटेक वहां चलाते रहते हैं तो वहां पे उसको रिमेडिएट करना और वो करना टेक्निकली भी बहुत पॉसिबल नहीं हो पाता है, प्रैक्टिकली कोई डिफिकल्ट है ही। तो हम लोगों ने इसमें काफी कुछ टेस्ट रिपोर्ट्स, स्टडीज कराई और सब आए, आज इस निष्कर्ष पे पहुंचे। और फाइनली खास करके हमने गाजीपुर के केस में हम लोगों ने लिया, स्टडी कराने के बाद CRRI सबके साथ स्टडी करा करके हम इस निष्कर्ष पे पहुंचे थे कि जो इसका इनर्ट है, जो 80% के करीब और 70%, 70 to 80% के करीब इनर्ट्स आ रहा है, जो अभी संजीव जी ने भी बताया, तो वो रोड के एम्बैंकमेंट में कैन बी यूटिलाइज्ड वेरी एफिशिएंटली एंड इफेक्टिवली। लेकिन इसके लिए हमने NHAI के साथ एग्रीमेंट भी किया, सब कुछ हुआ, लेकिन अल्टीमेटली फिर वही चीजें आती हैं कि जब मल्टीपल शोल्डर्स जब हो जाते हैं किसी प्रॉब्लम में, तो वो एग्जीक्यूशन बिल्कुल ही डेविएट कर जाती है, एग्जीक्यूशन हो नहीं पाती, और हर किसी के अपने अपने इंटरेस्ट होते हैं। NHAI हैज इट्स ओन इंटरेस्ट, हम तो मिट्टी भर के भी काम कर लेंगे, हम इस चक्कर में क्यों पड़े, इसमें हम खर्चा क्यों करें। खर्चा तो गवर्नमेंट ने करना था और गवर्नमेंट ने देना था और गवर्नमेंट ने एग्री भी किया था, लेकिन यही होती है कि विलिंगनेस नहीं है, हम तो बगल से मिट्टी कटवा करके भर लेंगे और हम एम्बैंकमेंट में कर लेंगे। तो वो इस तरह से करके ये चीजें हो नहीं पा रही हैं। और जब तक कि हम फ्रेश वेस्ट का सॉल्यूशन नहीं करते हैं, वहां पे फ्रेश वेस्ट का इंटेक नहीं रोकते हैं, हम ओल्ड डंप साइट्स को रिमेडिएट नहीं कर पाएंगे प्रैक्टिकली। फिर भी जैसे NGT के ऑर्डर्स वगैरह हुए तो तीनों डंप साइट्स जो दिल्ली के हैं उस पे काम चल रहा है रिमेडिएशन का, लेकिन दिक्कत वहीं आ जाती है कि ये जो फ्रैक्शंस निकल के आते हैं, C&D वेस्ट को तो हम लोग डील कर पा रहे हैं, क्योंकि दिल्ली में हम लोगों ने C&D वेस्ट के प्लांट्स लगा लिए हैं, तो C&D वेस्ट को हम वहां डील कर लेते हैं। जो कंबस्टेबल पार्ट, हेलो,
यस 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 यस,
जो कंबस्टेबल पार्ट है हमारा, जो इसमें स्क्रीनिंग करके निकलता है, उसके लिए दो और कोई ज्यादा चीज सीधी सीधी तो निकलती नहीं है, सिर्फ है कि वो उसको कंबसन में ले जाएं, चाहे वेस्ट टू एनर्जी प्लांट में ले जाएं या सीमेंट क्लेन में ले जाएं। सीमेंट क्लेन में ले जाने में फिर वही ट्रांसपोर्टेशन कॉस्ट एक एस्पेक्ट है। और जो इनर्ट है, अभी तो हम छोटे छोटे जगहों पे छोटे छोटे प्रोजेक्ट्स में हल्का फुल्का उसका इस्तेमाल कर पा रहे हैं इनर्ट्स का, लेकिन जितना पेस से रिक्वायर्ड है उसका यूटिलाइजेशन वो हो नहीं पा रहा है, और ये सबसे बड़ी प्रॉब्लम होती है। तो इसके लिए जो अभी बात आ रही थी, आपने कही थी अनिल जी की SPV बनाने की बात है, और उस SPV को मैंडेट भी मिलना चाहिए कि जैसे अब हाईवेज बन रहे हैं तो वो SPV बनाएगी या बनवाएगी वहां पे। अगर ये यूटिलाइजेशन का आप कहीं मैंडेट नहीं देंगे तो ये चीज कुछ भी आप सेग्रीगेट करके रख लो, वो सही बात है कि एक डंप को हटा करके 3 डंप में आपने क्रिएट कर दिया है, इससे ज्यादा कुछ नहीं होने वाला है। और रैदर फिर उससे प्रॉब्लम भी बढ़ेगी, क्योंकि आज तो वो सब चीजें दबी दबाई कॉम्पैक्टेड हैं, सिर्फ वाटर पॉल्यूशन कर रहा है या थोड़ा एयर पॉल्यूशन भी कर रहा है। लेकिन कल को जब आप 3 ढेर बना देंगे तो फिर एयर पॉल्यूशन का सेपरेट शुरू हो जाएगा, अलग से वो जो पार्टिकल, स्मॉल पार्टिकल्स हैं वो भी हवा में जाएंगे, क्योंकि वो खुल गए हैं, खुले हैं, सेग्रीगेट करके रखे हुए हैं। और लैंडफिल साइट भी जो कॉम्पैक्टेड थी, समय के साथ जब हम एक्सकवेट कर देते हैं उसको स्क्रीनिंग करने के लिए, तो फिर उसमें भी और प्रॉब्लम बढ़ जाती है कि बारिश हुई, कुछ हुआ तो वो नीचे और जमीन में जाके वाटर पोल्यूशन को और बढ़ाता है। वैसे जो दिल्ली के हमने एम्स खास करके गाजीपुर में हम लोगों ने किया है, मेरे ख्याल से समय ज्यादा हो रहा है।
जी हम विल कंटिन्यू नेक्स्ट में। आज तक थोड़ा सा जस्ट आप समराइज कर रहे हैं तो वी कैन कंटिन्यू नेक्स्ट में सेशन में यही करेंगे।
हाँ, तो इस मामले में मैं नेक्स्ट वाली जो होगी
बिल्कुल
हमारी, उसमें मैं इसका डिटेल आपके सामने रखूंगा, क्योंकि क्या क्या चीजें हम ऑलरेडी कर चुके हैं और जो बहुत सारे एस्पेक्ट्स आए हैं संजीव जी के प्रेजेंटेशन में, उसमें बहुत कुछ वर्क किया हुआ है, लेकिन वो वर्क आगे जा नहीं पा रहा है, कहीं लोग तो पहुंच नहीं पा रहा है। तो इस बारे में मैं अगले मीटिंग में मैं उस बात को रखूंगा।
बिल्कुल थैंक यू अरुण जी। आई थिंक यू आर दी एक्चुअल पर्सन जो आपने बहुत सालों तक जो ज्वाइंटली एमसीडी थी और इंक्लूडिंग ईडीएमसी में काम किया। मैं इसलिए आपको खंडेलवाल जी को स्पेशली मैंने फिर तभी स्पेशली कॉल किया, और खंडेलवाल जी तो आज पूजा में बिजी थे, नहीं आ पाए। तो आप बट आई थिंक वी हैड वेरी डिटेल डिस्कशन। तो आज हम इसको कंटिन्यू रखेंगे, और मैं अब रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा हमारे ट्रस्टी एचसीएफआई के विवेक कुमार जी से कि फाइनल एज ए क्लोजिंग के लिए जस्ट टू सब में एक्सपर्ट मेंबर का थैंक्स करते हुए अपने व्यू करें, और फिर हम इसको नेक्स्ट में कंटिन्यू रखेंगे। ओवर टू विवेक कुमार जी।
Thank you for all the viewers and thank you for participating in today's discussion. I would especially we are very grateful from HCFI to Mr. Sanjeev Kumar for giving such a beautiful presentation. It was very educative and it highlighted a lot of issues on the biomining and these dump grounds and how we think it is easy to do, but it is not so easy as we think. And especially even waste to energy cannot be taken because, as Mr. Sanjeev Kumar explained, there is still a lot of water in the dump ground which is not really seeping into the ground. And these are practical experiences which he has highlighted, which we otherwise would not have had knowledge to. And these kind of highlights removes ignorance from us and gives us the knowledge and makes us more practical on these situations. With this, I would like to thank everybody. Please do participate in next Sunday again, and we will take this subject forward. And of course, Dr. Anil Kumar, who is heading through HCFI, the environmental division, he will be coordinating and taking it forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vivek ji. I think that was very important. और सभी मेंबर से रिक्वेस्ट है कि नेक्स्ट में जो आज है सब लोग पॉसिबल हो सके 1-8% है चांस कोई नहीं आ पाए, बट ऑल दो एटलीस्ट आज आए, बाकी लोग तो आएंगे नेक्स्ट में। बट जो आज आए मेंबर्स हैं उनसे रिक्वेस्ट है कि नेक्स्ट में पार्टिसिपेट करें, बिकॉज यू हैव ऑलरेडी शेयर्ड द एक्सपीरियंस, सम ऑफ यू एंड सम ऑफ यू वुड लाइक टू। एंड जो आज हम लोगों ने सुना है, संजीव कुमार जी प्रेजेंटेशन भेजेंगे। और मैं लास्ट में सबसे रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा कि अपना वीडियो ऑन कर लें। सपना, वी कैन टेक द ग्रुप फोटो। सपना?
हाँ जी सर, ले लूं।
हाँ,
इसमें मेरा एक सजेशन है, नेक्स्ट टू इसमें है ना अजय देश पांडे को भी मैं भी बुला लेता हूँ, आप भी बुला लो। एनजीटी का पर्सपेक्टिव भी थोड़ा वो बता देगा।
जी सर, द्वारका जी आप रिक्वेस्ट कर लीजिए, आपके रिक्वेस्ट से, बिकॉज आप यू हैव द पर्सनल रिलेशन।
नहीं, अजय देश पांडे से मैं रिक्वेस्ट कर लूंगा नेक्स्ट वीक में आ जाएं, सो दैट इवन इफ सम ऑफ द रिकमेंडेशन नीड टू गो अगेन टू एनजीटी, वी कैन आस्क देम टू डू दैट।
बिल्कुल सर, बिल्कुल जरूरी, क्योंकि डायरेक्शन से ही बहुत कुछ होता है। दिल्ली में जो भी सब कुछ स्टार्ट हुआ है, एसपीबी बनी है, और जब से सबको फोर्स किया गया कि यू पुट इन मनी, तो चाहे एमसीडी हो या गवर्नमेंट, तो तब से काम एटलीस्ट बढ़ा है जो भी 10 बजे।
और अरुण सर से ये रिक्वेस्ट है, खंडेलवाल तो आ ही जाएगा, टोफल अहमद भी अगर पकड़ पाएंगे तो उसको भी लेके आए।
आ जाएगा
क्योंकि दिल्ली में टोफल अहमद का शुरुआत किया है, जो एसएलएफ एक डंप साइट, एक ही म्युनिसिपल कॉर्पोरेशन था, उस टाइम से जो उन्होंने काम किया है। मेरे ख्याल से आज भी वो एसडीएमसी में है। वो
आई थिंक वो रिटायर्ड के बाद भी उसकी सबसे ज्यादा उसकी जो इम्पोर्टेंस हो रही है, सब जगह पकड़ा जाते हैं उसको।
वो एसडीएमसी में शायद है कंसल्टेंट के साथ।
जी चलिए, थैंक यू एवरीबॉडी, हैव ए लंच एंड एंजॉय। और कल अपना जो पहले नहीं होता था, वैलेंटाइन डे है, व्हाटएवर दी आजकल हो रहा है, आप सेलिब्रेट करें अपने स्पाउस के साथ और सम में भी गर्लफ्रेंड के साथ।